the House of Freedom. We are so excited. This is our very first
Yes.
episode of 2025.
And it's like, how did this last year just go by so fast?
I
And
feel
I
like
know it's like halfway of January.
exactly. I feel like 2024 went by so fast. It I feel like we just had New Year's Eve 2024. So it's like
I don't know where the month
gosh.
has been, but we're here and we're excited to be back. We have been like planning some really fun and exciting episodes coming up,
Yeah.
and we can't wait to share them with you. They're just so special to our hearts. But I we really talked about like what this first episode of the year was going to be. And I know it's like halfway through January, but we really wanted to touch on like some top things that the Lord has shown us throughout the last year of our life.
Yeah. I mean, we wanted to be able to reflect on 2024 and then just kind of figure out what our target and what our focus is going to be on in
Yeah.
2025. So 2024 for our family specifically was a year of reckoning. The Lord gave us the phrase, it's a year of reckoning,
Yeah.
the word reckoning, in January 2024. And this year has definitely been a year of reckoning, considering, just
Yeah.
reckoning with something, really hardly considering it. And I even like think about it not like in a negative sense, but kind of like you're in the boxing ring with that thing and you're reckoning with that thing, trying to
Yeah.
understand it, trying to figure it out, trying to really like mull it over. And that's honestly what this entire year has been about,
Yeah.
is just like reckoning with a lot of different things. And so that's honestly how we got to this episode, is just considering everything that we've learned, everything that the Lord has taken us through, and the different things that we've learned
Yeah.
throughout this year. And we kind of nailed it down to 4 things. And so we want to just kind of go and jump right into that. We
Yeah.
want to jump into the 4 things that we are taking from 2024, and what that looks like. So,
Yes. So first one being I think is my favorite,
yeah,
but also not my favorite. And when I say that, it's because I don't like doing it, but it's necessary. And that would be having the hard conversations. And I know that I've said that. I feel like I've said it over and over on on this podcast, but like I really live by, especially in this last year, having hard conversations with, whether it's between me and Blake's marriage or with our family or with our friends, our relationship mentors that we have,
yeah,
um, and how important is it to have those hard conversations to experience growth, to experience just like changes and things like that. Like,
and I think too, it goes back to, we did the episode on the values, and having hard conversations goes back to being authentic. Authenticity is
yeah,
one of our values here on the House of Freedom and within our family. And um, I said this in a meeting that we had the other day. Like, this has truly been a year of the Lord taking me specifically through like just being authentic, just
yeah,
being really comfortable and getting out of the uncomfort of just like sharing my feelings and sharing my like inner thoughts and the things that are going on in my head. Um and just being consistent about that, and really like, it having the hard conversations means like you're not always going to like what is coming out of the other person's mouth.
yeah,
But it doesn't mean that it can't be healing and helpful. um I think even just even in our marriage, having different conversations that are like, this is where I'm at, this is how I'm feeling, um and just like helping the other one
yeah,
reflect and helping the other one see it from the other person's perspective
yeah.
has been so helpful. Stepping into those difficult conversations and the necessary conversations.
Yeah, and with like the hard conversations, and this is something that like I know I've learned, um is I know Blake is touching like how it can help you when you have that hard conversation to see a different perspective, to grow. But I've also like this year I've had hard conversations that ended relationships in my life, and that not is necessarily a terrible thing,
Right.
but it was the hard conversation to bring the closure, or to really realize like, hey, maybe our relationship, our friendship is not a fruitful one, and it's time to go our separate ways. And I know
Right.
that's like sounds so dramatic, but I've really had that happen this year, is where, I was able to be an adult, and we were able to have a hard conversation with a good friend of mine, and we did decide to go ahead, and we were just both growing in different ways in life, and like that not is not the outcome that I wanted. However, because I had hard conversations, we were able to end things in love, and end things knowing that, where we're going in life may be completely opposite, but we love each other and we want the best for each other.
Yeah.
Instead of it just being like this, like, oh, that's an ugly like friendship breakup or whatever, it doesn't have to be that. Like, the Lord doesn't just like end things to be terrible. Like, he wants us to grow in every aspect of our lives, and even in those hard times and those hard aspects, like I think about that, and I'm thankful for the hard conversations that have allowed me to grow, but also the hard conversations that have, okay, this is the end of the road, and
Yeah.
I'm gonna grow because of this moment and situation. So
Well, I think that, I mean, the whole purpose of having a hard conversation is to have freedom.
yeah.
Like the purpose, you have it in my notes. It says like having the necessary and difficult conversations can bring freedom to relationships. And so that doesn't necessarily mean that you like stay best friends and everything's mended.
Yeah.
Restoration can look like a lot of different things. And in this season, um, sometimes having those hard conversations, like with friends, with family members, with your spouse.
Yeah.
Um, and as your kids get older, if you have kids, having hard conversations with your children. Um, it's hard to have a hard conversation with a 3-year-old, but
Yeah.
like meaning, just being open. And I was talking to a friend about this literally yesterday. Just one thing that I've learned in my own childhood is um there wasn't as much authenticity as I would have liked as an adult. And thinking about it, like that's how I want to be for our family. That's how I want to be for our children, is being very like upfront and honest, in regards to our past, in regards to the things that we've struggled
Yeah.
with, because the purpose of that is to help our children and our friends and our family like not have to struggle through the same things.
Yeah.
Um, and so practically approaching these conversations, um, what does that look like for you, at least, to approach these conversations in love and grace and still have that hard conversation?
Uh, what it what it looks like for me, and I feel like because I've had so many different situations in my life, or in the last year specifically, is really just being honest, but being honest in love and not being like aggressive about things. Because I personally can come off a bit aggressive, but I acknowledge it, and I know I'm like that. So knowing like there is so much um room when you just allow the Lord to just move in every aspect of a hard conversation. And again, like doing it through love and just being honest, and
Just being aware
yeah,
of
being
your
aware
heart
of like how
posture.
aggressive you are. If you do have an aggressive personality, I have
Yeah.
an aggressive personality. So being very aware of how I say things, my tone, how things come across, because I know I have an aggressive personality. So again, just being very self-aware, but also knowing that it's okay if the other person isn't ready. I think that's a really, really important aspect, because if the other person is not ready to have the hard conversation, it can either just not happen or it can go really bad.
Yeah.
So recognizing like who you are trying to speak to and if they're ready for that, because again, if they're not ready, there is not going to be any type of closure, any type of restoration
Right.
um in that. And I think even the Lord brought restoration in another friendship of mine that we hadn't spoken to in years, and it was just completely the Lord that brought the restoration that it was desperately needed. But we've been able just to pick up where we started, and again, because we had those hard conversations, because the other person was ready.
Yeah.
So I think that also kind of leads into our number two
Mm-hmm.
of did you have anything else about hard
No, I
conversation that
think everything you said was great. I think, it's just being self-aware, and I guess to add into that little part about like if the other person is not willing to have a hard conversation, um, then just knowing that that's okay.
yeah,
Um, get find an outlet for you know your feelings and how you have that conversation with another person just so you can have it. Because I always find that like just talking it out sometimes, even
yeah,
if it's not with that same person, like it makes things feel a little bit better. And obviously not in a gossipy way, just trying to process your own feelings. But number two, understanding your value and worth and paying attention to how others value you.
yeah,
This is a big one for me that I wanted to talk about because when I first approached this topic, I was like, I I told Anissa, I was like, I want to talk about, just how you have to set boundaries and like, not allow everybody in, and honestly, that's kind of like how the past year has felt, in a lot of different ways, and um, because
yeah,
I'm a super open person and I'm really loving and I always want the best for people, um, and so this year I felt like there's a lot of different spaces where um maybe I wasn't valued and I was just kind of like okay with it because I just loved that person. Um and so I told her I was like I want to talk about like setting boundaries and not allowing people in because like if they're only going to give 40%, then you only need to give 40%. Don't give 100% to people because I've heard that so many times and it sounds good. Like it
yeah,
sounds so good as like you're protecting yourself. It's self help. It's mental health awareness, those kind of things. But honestly, when we were discussing it, like Anissa brought up such a good point. You know, um, we both heard this particular sermon and we were just kind of like mulling over, and it was talking about love and just like radically loving people, um, and it specifically talked about how Job had absolutely no reason to love God.
yeah,
Like, um, when Satan came back and he was like, Job loves you for no reason. And it's annoying because I've taken his health, I've taken his children, I've taken his wife, taken his
everything.
wealth, I've taken everything, and he still worships you. He still
Yeah,
praises you. And Anissa was like, honestly, you know, the what the Lord has been speaking to her and then, speaking to me now is like, just love for no reason.
yeah,
Just like love people. And so that's why when I looked back at the subject, it's like understanding like your value and worth
as a
and as a
person.
person, like what do you bring to the table? Who are you? What is your identity? But
Yeah,
also like it doesn't mean to not put that same effort in, but still a good idea to like
be
be
mindful.
mindful of like how others value you. Like do these people have like the best intentions at heart for me? Are they looking out for me? Are they like really trying to help me and be a friend,
Yeah,
or be a partner, whatever it is? Like those are good things to consider when you are like sharing your life with someone,
Yeah.
whether it's through friendship or whatever. But in overall, like just having the heart posture of Jesus, having the
Yeah.
heart posture of Father, um, and just loving them, loving that person, and learning to love people the way God loves them.
And
Because,
loving them where they're at and like having grace and mercy for
yeah,
people, because it's almost as like we're in a culture that is so boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. And again, boundaries are totally necessary. But I think that our generation and a culture and the society that we live in has just like taken it so far that it's like, I'm going to cut people off. They did X, Y, and Z to me, and I want nothing to do with them. And again, it's like taking that grace and mercy out of it. And I just look back at the Lord and I'm just like, oh, thank the Lord that He didn't do that to me when I did that to
yeah,
Him, because I've done that to the Lord so many times and He never, like, He loved me all the same.
mm-hmm.
Like, it didn't matter how much I turned my back on the Lord, He still died on that cross for me. And like, it's knowing, being mindful of what I mean, at the end of the day, we all have something to bring to the table. We all have different personality types. We all carry different talents and um just like different aspects of us that the other person doesn't. And knowing and being mindful and valuing yourself to know, okay, Jesus, and I think we've said this before, is like Jesus had, I'm going to say this wrong. You know it better than I do, but it's where Jesus had his inner circle. And then, uh,
Yeah. So the
what,
the
I'm like brain
metaphor,
fart
the
right now.
phrase is like Jesus. He lived his life for the multitude. He shared his stories in teaching with the 12, and then he shared his deepest secrets with the three.
Yeah. And
And so that's like the boundary there is like, being picky and choosy on who is in that three that you're sharing your secrets with. But if they're in the 12 or in the multitude, it doesn't mean that they don't deserve the same amount of love that you're giving to the
yeah.
three. Jesus loved everyone the same, and he loved everyone um, directly, like for who they were, um, and so I think even going back to number one, like when you know your value and you also you love people, that's why you have hard conversations.
Yeah.
Um, and that's why, because you're like, I love this person and I value myself and I value them, and that's why it's worth having that hard
Yeah.
conversation. Um, and so that leads us into number three.
Yeah. They all intertwined.
Yeah.
Number 3 is going to be living with purpose and intentionality. Oh, and I can just talk about being intentional like all day.
Yeah.
But that's something like I know for both of us, but specifically for me is like being so intentional in the areas that I wasn't intentional in last year. And I think really that's like all of my relationships, um, like just intentional with the Lord, intentional with my home, intentional with my kids, really being intentional and learning like what the distractions are in my life and limiting them, whether that's social media, whether that's TV, the things that are taking you away from the
Yeah.
Lord and the things that are taking, this podcast is about how to steward a house of freedom. What is it that is a distraction in your life that's taking you away from being able to steward that house of freedom? Because
Mm-hmm.
for some, it may not be like this huge sin that's like just open. It could simply be that you don't even open your Bible. It could be that you prioritize working out over spending time with the Lord or over taking care of your home. It could be that you just are not, it could be the simplest things of like making your bed every day or just getting your house in order, making it again, like
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be this, oh, I'm out partying, I'm doing the sin, like all of these X, Y, and Z sins. It's the little things. And that's one thing that
Yeah.
like really the Lord's been dealing with me on is it's the little things that matter. And within those little things, it's what builds those healthy, intentional, purposeful habits in your life.
Well, and I think also like the purpose of House of Freedom is to steward a House of Freedom,
Yeah.
obviously. So like, how do you do that? And we always say it starts in our house, you know. And so stewarding culture, like creating a culture in your own home, creating a culture in your family, with your family, you know, being like, we stand for X, Y, and Z, whatever it is. Like, that's why we, you know, set that building block of like, let's have family values because
Yeah.
we are trying to create culture for our children. And outside of Anissa's family's culture or my family's culture, like our house's family culture is
Yeah.
this. And so it goes all the way to what we watch, what we entertain, what we allow our kids to watch, what we listen to. Um, does that mean that we listen to Christian radio 100% of the time? No, but it just means that we're very intentional about, you know, like stewarding the atmosphere, stewarding the culture that's within our own home.
Hmm.
It's one of the things that we have control over. Um, and so we are finding tools that the Lord is giving to help do that.
Yeah.
And that starts with being intentional, like doing the small things.
Yeah.
There's and I know you've said it like hundreds of times. I know I've talked about it before, but um you know, going through we recently like in the last 2 years we've switched our whole house to like low tox, non-tox
Yeah.
products. And the reason we did that was because, you know, we saw the effects of the chemicals and all the things that we have in, you know, our world.
Yeah.
um, and one of the really cool statistics that I love about that is that you're not just doing things for you right now,
Yeah.
it's a generational effect. And so um, the more people that the more that people do the switches to a non-toxic stuff, we will see the effects of that 3 generations
Yeah.
down. And I love that so much because that means that the choices that you're making today, the values that you value, the things that you're doing,
Yeah.
um, like who you're creating a life with, all those different things, although it sounds kind of scary, like you are making decisions for 3 generations
Yeah.
down from now.
And that's why the saying is like, you want to change the world, it starts in your home. You want to
Yeah.
change a generation, it starts in your home. Everything that you do starts in your home, which is, again, house of freedom. How do you steward that house? And it's really like going into this next year of 2025 and being intentional with what the Lord has given you to steward. And we all have different homes. We all have different like things that the Lord has given us, but being intentional with that, with also coming into navigating change with faith.
Yeah. So navigating change with faith, it's honestly like something we're in right now.
Yeah.
But I felt like it was so important to even kind of talk about because even just as a family, we're in a season of like just, um, you know, going into the new year. Obviously, the new year is a year of transition and change and things, because it's a change in the year and all these different things. But um, like just allowing, like taking your hands off of
Yeah.
things and allowing the Lord to just be like, I have it. Like,
Yeah.
there's been moments where we've both kind of expressed to each other, like, I literally feel like I have no control right now, and like, it is stressful. Like, I'm stressed out. Like,
Yeah.
it can be very overwhelming, but I felt like for both of us, this year has just been a year of like, the Lord's like, just take your hands off of it.
Yeah.
Like, stop trying to do it yourself. Stop, like, just allow me to move, allow
Yeah.
me to work in it. Um, because there have been moments where we're like, we literally have um no control. I feel like we
Yeah.
have no control right now, and it can get overwhelming. But I think the other thing with that is like having confidence in God's plan, having confidence
Yeah.
in what the Lord has for you in this season is so pivotal. It is
Yeah.
so pivotal.
And really just, I mean, just trusting the process and trusting the
Yes.
process with the Lord, which this one ties into all of them going into 2025. So, like Blake said, we've had a lot of change that happened this year and a lot of things that we're reckoning with the Lord and like
Yeah.
things that, having those hard conversations, learning the values of within ourselves and the values of
Yeah.
other people, living intentionally and knowing that through change, like as long as the Lord is in the center, nothing else could go wrong. I mean,
Yeah.
you're definitely going to face like
There's going to be bumps in the road.
there's gonna be bumps in the road, and the thing is we're not meant to stay the same. We are not meant to be the same person as 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Like who we were at the beginning of 2024 is not who we are right now in the beginning of 2025. The last year has changed you. It has molded you. It has hopefully grown you and matured you, but also like realizing you cannot do another day without the Lord.
Yeah.
Again, it all points back to how are you stewarding your house of freedom and allowing the Lord to be in the middle and really just embracing everything that it has, because change is hard, change is uncomfortable, change is testing the things that you don't want to test. Like
Yeah.
it's really stretching you and molding you into who the Lord wants you to be. And so, yeah, I mean, navigating change with faith is just so important. But I think, again, it goes back to, are you having your daily encounter with the Lord? Because it just makes things a whole lot easier when you are.
Well, and I think too, like, we're just getting to a time and a space as Christians and as the body of Christ,
Yeah.
um, that you have to, again, reckon with it. Like, reckon with the idea that you have to have a daily relationship with the Lord.
Yeah.
Like, you are not going to make it without it. And I feel like so many people are saying that right now, but there are so many people not listening. There are so many people that are just kind of like, oh, it's okay. Like, it's not a big deal. Like, I pray and every other day. Like, the reality is like, God isn't just calling us to get on our faces and
Yeah.
like try to get to the third heaven every time, we pray, or, just be completely wrecked by the presence of the Lord. It's really just a relational thing every day, like just having a daily
Yeah.
relationship. Like, I can't stress it enough, and I can't put it in any other way, just encountering him daily
Yeah.
and having that daily relationship, just like you have a daily relationship with your spouse or your friends,
Yeah.
your family, whoever it is. Like, it's the same. They, we look at the way Adam encountered God every day in the
Yeah.
garden, and that's still how God intends it to be.
Yeah.
Um, and so, just you're not going to be able to process the growth in having that faith in the
Yeah.
middle of change, and get freedom from it if you don't have a daily relationship. Like, it's
Yeah.
just not going to work. Um, and so that was really like, we just wanted to kind of share that. I know that there are so many of you that have, different things that you've learned this year, and we would love to hear some of those things, just
Yes.
like, what has the Lord brought you through? What have you gone on a journey through? Um, this year is going to be very big for us. We've got a lot of projects that are tied in with the House of Freedom that we're super excited
Yeah.
about. Um, and I'm just ready
We can't
to,
share it. We can't wait to share them with you.
I
I,
know
I wish I could
it's,
say everything now, but
I literally am like,
just
we're
stick
gonna do this, and
around.
we're gonna do this, and we want to do this, and we want to do this. So, but it's definitely gonna be a journey this year. We're so excited, um, and yeah, we hope you have enjoyed this
Yes. And
episode.
we end every episode with saying, you
Yes,
remember,
with our three things.
you have that daily encounter with the Lord every
Yes.
single day.
Mm-hmm.
How we steward a house of freedom, daily encounter with the Lord. Secondly, is remember that we are not battling
flesh and blood.
flesh and blood, but spirits of principalities.
Yeah.
When you remember that, it just makes things so much easier when dealing with tough situations that happen and with the bumps in the road. You remember, like, always lean on the Lord.
Yeah.
The third thing is pick up your cross and die to your flesh daily.
Yeah.
They all tie in together. And when you're like, okay, Lord, like, my fleshly self is normal, but Lord, help me to die to my flesh and help me to pick up my cross.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it makes things so much easier going along,
Yeah.
circling back to having that daily encounter. So I hope that you have an amazing day. And if this episode blessed you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
Yes.
And I really can't wait to see you on the next episode.
We are so excited. You guys have a wonderful day or wonderful evening. And we pray that this has helped you in any way. But we will see
Yes.
you next time on the House of Freedom.
Bye.